Hello, I'm TheZOMBIEJ. This is a second video for today. It's been a long time since I did that. Anyway, I've got some tea for today. Yum. Tea is good. I don't know if it's good for you, but hey, whatever. So, for this video, I just posted my video on the LEGO One Piece Season 2 sets, so go to watch that now if you haven't already. So I wanted to do a second video today because, well, I figured I'd make up for lost time, and I kind of want to get back into making multiple videos a day again, up to 2 or 3. We'll start with 2, to see where things go. So this video is about Hero Factory's story. I know some of you are Hero Factory fans, and well, this video might not be up to your standards in terms of quality of talking about Hero Factory's story because of all the swear words I'm going to mention. So, let's begin, shall we? First off, Bionicle G1 was cancelled in 2010 with the stars. Not good sets. Colorful, vibrant, I like them. But I only like them because of nostalgia. Still had the fragile ass joints. Then came Ben 10, and we were pissed when LEGO introduced Ben 10 Alien Force sets, and not even giving us all 10 aliens. LEGO, you... yeah. That really pisses me off. It's like, you have 10 aliens to choose from, and you only give us 6 out of 10? It's like they literally sat down and looked at the 10 aliens from the Alien Force and said, we only have a 6 set limit for this wave. We're only going to do this one, this one, this one, this one, that one, and this one. Yeah, that's exactly what they did, basically. And these were crap. They were an important step in the evolution of construction, though, and I've already stated this before. But then we got Hero Factory in the second half of 2010. 6 heroes. Okay, you already sold me with the 6 heroes thing. And, as well, on the containers, canisters and box arts, it says, from the makers of Bionicle. So Greg Farshchi was apparently involved. Christian Faber too. Not sure about Bob Thompson, but hey. Well, things... big oof when it comes to the story of Hero Factory. Hero Factory's story started out actually decent. Then later on, you know, as time progressed, it became, you know, just sort of this, what the fuck, this is simple and dull and boring. And over time, I was like, you know, this story is not that great. Obviously, I haven't read the books, but I can guess by the level of writing that was done with the show, that the books would just be not as good. It would be bad. The show would be the show was it was laughable at best, but the books probably would have been pretty bad as well. The storytelling for Hero Factory was simple and not complex at all. It was nowhere near as complex as Bionicle G1, and it never was going to be. It was meant to be the permanent replacement for G1. Well, look what happened there in 2014, LEGO. In 2015, well, in 2014, they canceled Hero Factory on a cliffhanger. And this is where I come in and put my foot right through the door and walk into the LEGO office and say, what were you thinking? Because LEGO, you fucked up the story for Hero Factory. It was geared towards kids, obviously. And it was guaranteed to be more kid-friendly than Bionicle, because Bionicle was darker and more serious. It had its comedic moments, but it was meant to be a more mature story, and one that more resonates much better with older fans like me, and probably you. And let's face it, kids in 2010 were probably scared to get into Bionicle because of its aesthetic and dark tones, and the fact that the main bad guy was killed by his own brother. Yeah. Matanui basically shoved Makuta into an oncoming moon, and he crushed his skull. Basically. Destroyed him. Killed him. That is quite a death right there. Strange. Weird. Stupid. But hey. At least Makuta's gone. I already touched base on this before. Anyway. You don't have deaths in Hero Factory. You have arrests. I guess that's close enough. Where in Breakout you see all these villains imprisoned into the prison cells. So basically the Hero Factory heroes are crime fighters. Criminal fighters and whatnot. So, okay, so... Alright, this is not bad, but... The story... it got progressively worse over time, and... Savage Planet was probably where it peaked, honestly, in terms of, you know, the best story, because the animation for the two-part episode thing was pretty good. It was a good... I can't even say that with a straight face. Savage Planet saw a decline in Hero Factory storytelling because Breakout had potential, obviously, as I've said this before in another video, but it was cut in half basically to basically accommodate the fact that, you know, this was not meant to be a 4-part episode. It was only going to be a 2-part episode. LEGO could have made it a 4-part episode thing with all the Hero Factory sets that were released in 2012. 9 heroes, 9 villains. But it didn't happen that way. Yeah. And as a result of that, Breakout lost its potential. Had no potential at all at that point. Well, kind of. The storytelling was bad. Brain Attack, despite the sets for Brain Attack, except for Jet Rocka, that version of Rocka is garbage. Still useful for parts. But the sets for Hero Factory Brain Attack were great. They were the last good Hero Factory sets that were released. Now, some may say that Invasion from Below, which happened in 2014, obviously, that was the best wave of Hero Factory. Ha 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 ha! You're wrong! Invasion from Below sucked balls. It did. Seriously, I've spoken about this numerous times. The story ended on another cliffhanger, just like Brain Attack. Brain Attack had a cliffhanger. There were plot holes here and there within the entirety of Hero Factory's story. It was littered, plagued with ideas that just went nowhere and storytelling aspects that felt subpar. And so I feel like, You know, Bionicle G1, yes, it went on for quite a long time, and it was planned to run even longer, into apparently 20 years. We were supposed to get 20 years of Bionicle, and sales declined and we got it cut by half. I actually don't believe we were going to get 20 years. They were only going to give us a certain amount of time. A certain amount of years in Bionicle before they saw the sales decline and have to do something about it. But I've already spoken about this before. Hero Factory's story was something of a trivial, just... it was something that felt too... It was like Bionicle, but kidified. And it felt like Bionicle G2 was even worse than Hero Factory's story. G2's story was I've already spoken about that too, but Hero Factory's story felt like a shit fest that we all saw coming, but nobody wanted to say anything about it, principally because Hero Factory fans would be all out in full force defending it, because they grew up with it. They grew up with Hero Factory. Yes, those people exist. Definitely. And they will defend Hero Factory tooth and nail until, well, it got canceled in 2014 after Invasion from Below, which it wasn't even a proper episode. It was cutscenes spliced together into one episode. That's not an episode, you idiots. I mean, come on. There was a game that had missions where you basically, go through underground and fight off the monsters and whatnot. And interspliced with the game, the gameplay, there are cutscenes in the animation style from Hero Factory's show. However, the animation was not as good as Brain Attack or previous iterations, episodes. Invasion from Below, set-wise, was crap. The mechs, the machines, were literal trash. There was a combination model. And yes, I'm speaking about this. There's a combination model that has a literal dick right there in between the legs. I guess it's supposed to be some kind of ramming dong, as I once called it. But it was inappropriate. You don't put a dick on a kid's toy combination model like that and expect to be taken seriously, Lego. They saw this, they probably saw this and laughed at it, but then put it out there because they needed a combination model, you see. And so I feel like Hero Factory's story was more of a rush job than anything else, because there were obvious plot holes and there were obvious, twists and turns that didn't make sense. There are ideas that feel like the story has some interesting ideas, quirks, if you will, to the storytelling, but in general, on a general basis, Hero Factory was a vastly inferior story to Bionicle G1. It felt like it was too... It was just too... It was not great. It was bad. It was actually subpar. It was... there was effort that was put into it, and I will commend the writers for Hero Factory for putting effort into the story of Hero Factory. But that doesn't change my opinion. The Hero Factory show was funny, at the very least. But even then, there are still things about it that don't make sense. And the fact that Breakout was supposed. It felt like Breakout was supposed to be 4 parts as an episode, or even spliced together as a full movie. Think about it, Lego, you fucking idiots! You butchered Hero Factory's Breakout story as best as you could. You gave us 18 fucking sets, and you only use a certain amount of them for the animation. What is wrong with you? No Core Hunter! We didn't get Core Hunter in the animation. Why? They cut it down. They cut it down, circumcised it, to a level where it just didn't feel fun anymore. And so I believe that Hero Factory's story was just not meant to be fun at all. It was meant to be something for the younger generation of 2010 to latch onto and be like, hey, Hero Factories are Bionicle. This is cool. Well, turn back the clock a little bit, go back to 2001, and relive the past there. Hero Factory's story felt like it had potential to be maybe better than Bionicle's G1 story. But it just wasn't. It was a shit show, and felt like, you know, ideas were coming together, but they weren't coherent. They didn't come together in a cohesive way, and as a result, it became a sort of a mess. So let me say that about G1's story. Well, at least G1's story was entertaining. Hero Factory's story is not as entertaining. You read the books, you watch the show, you read the comics, there's very few of those, and I have a couple of them, and you immerse yourself in the lore of Hero Factory. It's not good lore. It is actually just... It's just bad. It really is bad. The Hero Factory FM podcast series was supposed to be an extension, but it ended up being a colossal fuckfest in on itself. It was stupid, and I already made a video on that. Go watch it if you haven't already. Hero Factory had potential to stand toe-to-toe with Bionicle because it was a construction theme. I am grateful that we got CCBS because of Hero Factory, even though I still believe Hero Factory, you know, CCBS started with Hero Factory, yes, but that doesn't make it strictly a Hero Factory parts, you fucking morons. Seriously, there are people out there that believe that CCBS they label CCBS parts as Hero Factory parts. Just because we first got those parts with Hero Factory Ordeal of Fire. You fucking cunts. I mean, seriously, what is wrong with you? You don't automatically associate CCBS with Hero Factory as Hero Factory parts without looking at the other themes of the era. Look at Shima. Look at, well, obviously, Marvel, DC, Superhero Ultra Builds. There's some good stuff there. Obviously. I know it's only 2 themes. But still. There's good stuff. And then, of course, Star Wars. Star Wars, big one. Yes. We could have gotten so many other construction themes. CCBS themes. Had G2's sales been up. But they weren't. They were subterranean. Hero Factory's sales were starting to decline, I believe, with Invasion from Below. Invasion from Below is crap. Those monsters, the creature things, are actually pretty cool. I actually like the monsters. even the little polybag one. But the mechs are just garbage. The big Evo mech is probably the only one worth my time, and even then, I'm not inclined to buy it because it's just, I hate Invasion from Below so much, and yet folks like Skybird like Invasion from Below and praise it as this, the best wave of Hero Factory. You want to know why exactly I hate Invasion from Below? It's because of those mechs, and it's also because of, wait for it, the minifigs. The hero minifigs that suck so much balls it's not even funny. You don't micro-size a hero like that and expect to be taken seriously, Lego. These were abysmal. They looked like crap. The voice acting in the episode swapped around here and there. You swapped some voices here and there, and the animation quality is just subpar compared to Brain Attack, and even I would go as far as to say Breakout and Savage Planet. Savage Planet is where they peaked with the animation. The story is inconsistent and just bad at times. Excuse me. The Hero Factory story. It felt like it could have had more to it. It could have had a lot going for it than just, 9 heroes going after, these criminals, these bad guys, these evildoers. And it could have had world building. That's the thing. The world building is not that great either. The world building, the storytelling, the story layers, the aesthetics, the themes. There's nothing there. There's nothing about Hero Factory, story-wise, that I can latch onto and hold close to my heart like some of you who grew up with Hero Factory. I can do that exact thing for Bionicle. Because the G1 heroes were my heroes. They were my childhood heroes, and I can grasp and latch onto them and hold them so close to my heart because I love them. I can't love Hero Factory, but I have an appreciation at least for it because of what it was as a step in the right direction for construction. It did what Ben 10 probably could never do. In some ways, Hero Factory was better than Bionicle G1 because the CCBS building system is actually worth experimenting with if you want to do that. I've put old construction parts with CCBS parts, mixed them together, and made great stuff. I have a Artaka G2 with G1 parts and G2 parts over there. Great build. I've done quite a lot of stuff with that building system. But Hero Factory story, again, feels like there were so many missteps. There was so much wrong with this story that it felt like it was just thrown together in a on paper, and some of the ideas were good, but then what happened? They rushed it, it seems. They rushed the story, and it feels like it was meant to be rushed. Because, they were pouring in ideas here and there, left and right, up and down, whatever. And they were just going with the flow, basically. The writers for Hero Factory story should be... I wouldn't say they should be ashamed of themselves, but they should have really put more thought and effort and care into Hero Factory's story the way they did with Bionicle G1's story. Because let's face it, G2 was not going to get that. No, not at all. Hero Factory's story could have been great. And you might think it is great. But I don't. I think it's bad. Very bad. It's missing plot points. It has plot holes that are bigger than Uranus, probably, but hey. This is a theme that is problematic. Hero Factory's story is problematic 100%. Too much is wrong with the story. And it's just abysmal how LEGO treated Hero Factory as a story when compared to Bionicle G1. Remember, G1 could have gotten its 20 years. 7 full, massive story arcs. But we didn't get it. We were halfway there. Only half. That's what I believe LEGO was going to give us. The executives were planning on that behind closed doors, separate from the writers. And yeah, Hero Factory might have been done the same way. We could have gotten Hero Factory 2015, but we didn't. Because Hero Factory wasn't meant to last long as Bionicle G1. It was never going to last longer than the 4.5 years that we got of it. I say half because 2010 was only a half year. The Titan builds and the villain builds were great. The heroes were okay. But as time went on, the builds for the villains and the heroes and whatnot got better with the CCBS stuff. CCBS is indeed a simple system, but that doesn't mean you can't make anything complex with it. Expand your horizons and experiment, if you haven't already. Now, the quality, the plastic quality is in question again because I've had so many CCBS sockets that broke. So many of them. It makes me cry. It really does. The shortest bone piece I have very little of because it keeps breaking on me. LEGO, fix your fucking plastic quality. It's not that hard. Well, I say that, I'm sure it is hard for them at least. I gotta tell you, I'm not a fan of Hero Factory's story, but it's the same with G2. Hero Factory's story and Bionicle G2's story can be intertwined, basically swapped, because both stories were subpar. G2's especially so, even further than Hero Factory. Hero Factory's story may have resonated with some of you, and that's cool. That's cool. I applaud that. But at the same time, you have to admit, we all have to admit that Bionicle G1's story was complex, interesting, layered, just had so much going for it. And yeah, there were plot holes too. There were a couple, sure. Especially towards the end when the story serials were never finished. But Hero Factory's story was not meant to be anything cohesive or even always coherent. It is a bad story written by good people to a degree. And if you disagree 100%, if you actually love Hero Factory's story, well, first off, what is wrong with you? Second of all, don't defend something just because you grew up with it and it was your childhood. I know I'm defending Bionicle, but that's because I can. And yeah, you choose to defend Hero Factory because you can. Your defenses for Hero Factory's story being great might change my mind, or may not. I don't know. We'll see. I welcome you to challenge me in the comment section below. Tell me exactly why you think Hero Factory's story is better than Bionicle G1's, and tell me exactly why you think I'm wrong because of my opinion on Hero Factory's story being subpar to Bionicle G1. Also, if you like Bionicle G2 as well, and its story, despite... we all know how bad the story is. Let me know in the comment section below of that as well. I have to hold Bionicle G1's story in highest regard of the Construction themed stories. In general, of LEGO theme stories, because it is the best story. It has the best lore of any LEGO original IP. Ninjago can never hold a candle to G1. Despite there being elements and, elemental cretins like dragons. Doesn't matter. Ninjago, balls compared to Bionicle. Hero Factory's story, whether you like it or not, it existed. So what do you think about Hero Factory's story? I know I may come off as a pretentious asshole for saying that I prefer G1's story over Hero Factory's story, and my reasons for hating on Hero Factory's story might come off as simple-minded, but the reality is that you have to at least agree that it is not as good as G1's story. It is nowhere near as dense, as layered, as complex as the storytelling for G1 and the world building. Everything is there, but with Hero Factory, there's nothing there. There's not much there. It's about, I would say, with Hero Factory, it's about, it's about a fourth. There's about a fourth there. And it just feels like Hero Factory's story was not going to ever hold a candle to G1. It was something that was quite an experiment, but dumbed down in a way that felt like they were making kids of 2010 and onward feel like they're stupid and they will latch onto these heroes no matter what, just like the Marvel and DC superheroes. No, that did not happen at all. Fuck you. I do apologize if I've upset any Hero Factory fans. But at the same time, expand your horizons and accept the fact that your theme, Hero Factory, not as great as Bionicle. No, never will be. It could have been great had the story been much better, had the plot holes and all the stuff that was felt rushed been ironed out. The story needed to be ironed out and fixed to the point where it'd be much better. I would encourage you to rewrite Hero Factory's story if you ever could fathom such a challenge. I challenge you to rewrite Hero Factory's story to be just as dense, layered, complex, full of, just growth, world building, just everything that Bionicle G1 had, and more. Do it for Hero Factory. See what you can come up with, and link me to that shit in the comment section below, because I would love to read it. But for now, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for more videos. I'm TheZOMBIEJ. I'll see you folks there. Have a fucking day, and peace.